Okay, so in this video I'm going to show you how I deal with stunted plants, tomato plants specifically, but this can apply to many of the other plants that you grow, like cucumbers and peppers and things like that. And you could apply this method to a lot of that stuff, but as you can see over here, I planted a lot of my tomato plants out here on the side of the greenhouse, which I do every year. And every one of them are doing pretty good. There's really no complaints. Some in the end are a little shorter than others because they're healthy, they're growing, but they're not getting quite as much water as these do. And the reason why is this roof, every morning when it gets early in the morning, it gets very humid, dew and humidity and all that, and it collects on there and it runs down and it pretty much waters the tomatoes every single day. So the other plants are going to be doing a little bit better, but the ones on the end may not be doing as good, so they could probably use some influence. But nevertheless, they're not stunted and they are growing. However, I do have a plant right here that, as you can see, is stunting. And they were all planted at the same time, same conditions, same soil, same everything, except this one just decided not to grow. It decided to stunt. And why did it do that? I don't know. All I can tell you is out of 20 plants that I have growing here, this is the only one that's stunting. So I have a couple options. Well, one option is to leave it there and hope that it picks up and starts growing again, and whatever reason it's stunting, it kind of straightens itself out and starts going again. The other option is to do this. I am going to I'm trying to look in here, I can't see you. I am going to cut it right there. This is the other option. That'll give me two things to examine, by the way. One is I can look down the center of the stem and look for any diseases or anything like that. And from here, I can't really see anything. It is a little brown now on the inside of that pith of that stem, so I'm not liking that too much. As you can see, I cut it there, and I'm going to leave the other half in there. I'm just going to grab my tag because we don't care no more about that spot. And I could always put something in its place, another tomato. I have plenty of extra tomatoes. I'm going to do a video on how I sucker tomatoes and what I do with my suckers and how that'll be a future video. I'm just right now, this video is about how to recover a plant that is doing something like what you see here, stunting, and maybe some other root issues, or maybe there's an insect infestation or nematodes in the soil, and you just simply need to do something with it because it's just going to get worse and worse and worse. So let's show you what I do with it. I cut the top off of it, and we are going to take this piece. You can come with me in the greenhouse, and what I do is you notice I save a lot of these cups, okay? And the reason why I save them is I use these to root my suckers, or in this case, I'm trying to revive this plant. But what I do is I simply put the lids on them. I save the lids and the cups. I wash them off good. Make sure there's nothing on them. And I will just simply stick my cutting inside. Oop, I dropped that. One hand, guys. We're doing this one hand. And we're going to cut off some of these really bad looking leaves. I'm not liking them too much. Oop, I'm sorry. This looks okay. You can see it even has a tomato on there. I'm going to clip that off. I don't want any tomatoes to form while I'm doing this. But we are going to put that down into there. And in about a week, that should have big enough roots for me to plant. It should start rooting within a day or two. I should start to see some roots. And that's the tomato. Now, you might say, well, why not just rip it out and just start it over from seed again? The problem with starting a plant over from seed is you have to go through the whole plant structure development cycle, and that could take as long as a month. Like these here in the back were started from seed, and I started them about a month ago. Hope that's not mold on there. But I started those about a month ago, and they're just starting to grow now. Yeah, we could plant them, and they're going to start getting pretty big. But this is already, I'm not going to go from seed again anymore. For the rest of the year, I'm pretty much done with starting my tomato plant from seed. You can start tomato plants from seed generally right up to around mid-July, and you're pretty much done with that. If you ain't got your tomato plants established by then, you're pretty much, unless you live in a really warm climate and your falls are warm all the way into December, then you might get away with it. But up here up north where I live, you really can't get away with it. You kind of have to have everything up and running by mid to late June, or mid-June to say mid-July. If you're not up and running by then, you could just forget your tomato season. Yeah, some of them may come up and you might get some like cherry tomatoes, you can get away with it, but if you're going to grow any of these big beefsteak tomatoes, I've had beefsteak tomatoes sit on my vine for months before they go from a green to a ripe color. So you could be sitting on the tomato for quite a while before it's ready to eat. So yeah, you can pick them green and let them ripen, but I'm not like that. But this is what I do when I have a tomato that's giving me a real problem, which isn't very common, but yeah, you can have these problems happen. It could be a disease, it could be a root problem. Whatever the case is, I usually cut it off where you see it. If I see anything down where I cut it off that looks a little weird and funky, I'll keep cutting back on that stem until I get rid of whatever that is looking funky. If it, like this one here, I don't have my glasses on, so I can't see it. I'm not exactly liking what I see there. I'll probably be able to see it on camera better, but it's very bright in here. I don't have my glasses, so it's going to be kind of hard for me. But nevertheless, what I do is I'll stick it inside the container, and let's see what we can see. You can see it hanging down in there, you know. See how it's just hanging down? I try to keep it straight so it looks nice and neat and all that, but you don't have to do that. You don't want to go too deep because all that's going to get turned to root. So, you know, you could see right there. See the stem? So that'll drop a whole bunch of roots down. When the roots get to around, when I see them getting around, I mean, you could, as soon as you see the roots starting to come out, you could take it out and plant it. I don't like to do that. I usually like to let the roots come down like around 2 to 3 inches and put out a lot of extra roots. When I see that, then I think it's pretty good. Then I'll take it out and I'll plant it in soil, and then keep it watered a lot in the beginning, you know, the soil real wet, and then after every day you kind of cut back on that water. You want that to get to a point where the wet roots get used to the dry soil, and then you can just do as you normally do. With tomato plants, you got to be real careful how much you water them, because tomatoes transpire heavy amounts of water, and because of that reason, that moisture that's constantly coming out of the tomato plant, it can get diseased very, very easily. That's why tomatoes are really, really bad with blight. Where was I? So yeah, that's it. That's basically how I deal with tomatoes that are stunting. You know, I start seeing a problem with it, I will simply just remove the top part of that tomato plant that looks like it's salvageable, and, you know, to remove any blighty leaves or any chewed leaves or anything that possibly looks infected. You want to leave some leaf on there, but I remove most of it. I take off any of the flowers or fruits, as you can see. There's another flower. I just picked that off. And you want it to put its energy into making the roots at this point. And like I say, about a week or so, you'll be ready to plant this. And maybe even sooner, depending on, you know, your weather and how hot it is and things like that. So, but that's how I do it. All right, guys? So if you have a tomato plant that's really being stubborn, this is one way to deal with it. And you don't have to put any root hormones or anything. Just cut it, put it in the water. You probably, as far as keeping it in direct sunlight, probably not the best idea in the world. But I leave it right here, or I might even take this off to the side as I rip my other plants out. Now I'll just put it on the sill where it's not really direct sunlight. It's kind of shady a little bit here. And growing among my other tomato plants makes it feel more at home for that plant and stuff like that. So, alright, so give it a try. If you have a plant that's pretty much giving you a hard time, this is a pretty proven method for me. It always seems to work. I'll see you on the next one. Take care.